Hey there guys, how you going? Well, this is a video that I've wanted to make for quite a long time. Where basically, obviously you guys know there's a bit of a version difference between our version of the game and the Japanese version of the game. Some events have come out in the past, some medals have been released that simply were not released in our game. The intent of this video is not to go, oh boo-hoo-hoo, where's our free content? Or where it's not even necessarily free. I just kind of find it interesting, some reasons why they might release content in the Japanese version of the game, and then when it comes time to release it in our version, it just gets skipped over for whatever reason. Sometimes they do want to withhold content, sometimes it may just not be the right time, and then the perfect time never does come up because we're skipping ahead. But I'm going to give my sort of thoughts as to why we missed out on particular things as we get going forward, but yeah, might as well just make a start to it. So I'll see you guys on the very first slide in one sec. Okay, so as I say in this little list here, this does not include medals that are due to come out in our game that I believe still will. So we are, as of the recording of this video, still a little bit behind the Japanese game in terms of the timeline. So there are medals like, again, at time of recording, like Master Xehanort EX, that are technically missing from our game right now, even though I fully believe they will come out. There is one little tweak to that, and I will talk about that in a second, when we get to the medals that are kind of thematically similar to it. But again, I will not be talking about any medals that I've already covered in a Medals of the Future series that I've done before, and any ones that I believe will come out very soon regardless, that aren't truly missing. Like for example, the Terra, Ventus and Aqua EX medals have just been released in the Japanese version if you're watching this a few months from now, and I very much believe they will be released in the global version of the game within a month. So, and yes, I have to be missing some. Basically, I went through the Wikipedia and I tried to find medals that only appeared in the Japanese version. So I fully recognize that I'm probably missing some. So if you do find any that I am missing, let me know. And if there are enough to warrant doing a second follow-up video, I will definitely include you as someone that's helped me out. So yeah, let's get into the very first set of medals here. So the first ones I've identified are basically 5 medals that we do technically have in our game, but we have the 6-star version only. So if you guys weren't aware, when the SP medals, as well as Sephiroth, the very first premium, and, sorry, not the first premium, but the first, I believe he was the first reverse, no, sorry. SP Roxas was definitely the first reverse medal, but Sephiroth over there was our first premium. So what they basically did was they took all of these medals up here that were all technically available as 3-star versions in the Japanese version of the game, and they weren't like super rares the way that we have them as being super rares. So they basically took all these guys up here, which are tier 3s, that also had a 5-star and a 6-star version. They were rare when they came out, and this was at a time where like even Fantasia Mickey A's were a lot more difficult to come by. And you know, we weren't able to stack up medals, so to evolve one of these you needed to have 3 slots in your inventory for Fantasia Mickey A's, as well as the evolution material. So just having a 6-star version was difficult in itself because, you know, it was quite difficult to, you know, have the AP to be able to run the special quest, have the storage space to pick up all those particular medals, and then, yeah, it was a much different time in the game. But anyway, they basically released, like I said, 5-star versions of all these medals up here, so you will recognize all of them. Obviously, SP Roxas, SP Axel, SP Xion, Sephiroth, the original Sephiroth, and Pooh, as we call it, Pooglet, but Pooh and Piglet. All their effects are exactly the same, but you'll notice that compared to our version, these medals are all a little bit weaker actually. Well, obviously Pooglet has a buff, but in terms of the multiplier, they're all slightly weaker. They were actually buffed up, not only because they became tier 4s, and therefore capable of higher multipliers through that 130% boost versus 100% boost, but also the multiplier is slightly higher at max. Well, yeah, it is slightly higher by default. Anyway, I wanted to move on to part 2. Alrighty, so we have the Valentine's Mickey and Minnie medals right here. So you'll notice that there are 3 straight away. So we've got the Valentine's Minnie just over there, Valentine's Mickey and Minnie, and then like a limited edition version of it way over there. So you can liken this one to, and some of you guys might not have been around long enough to know this, but do you remember the Sweetheart Beast medal, where basically there was a Belle and a Beast medal that came out, and then if you filled out the full event board, you got enough Belle and Beast to be able to guilt it. But then also right at the very end there was one copy of a Sweetheart Beast medal. It was exactly the same medal in every single sense of the way, but the artwork was different. It was basically Belle and the reformed human beast instead of the other medal, which was exactly the same, but with Beast as we know him. This is the same deal. So that medal up there and that one all the way in the corner are functionally exactly the same medal. The only difference is the artwork is slightly different, obviously. Anyway, these guys provide you with a PSM buff. And apart from that, they don't really do too much. This is released in February of 2016, so very early in the game's life. At the time, not too bad though, you know, a nice PSM buff is pretty decent at the time. Here's the thing though, it's like, I think a lot of these medals are going to suffer from a case of like, well, the global version, did it even exist at this point? I'm just thinking that now. Maybe it didn't, because we didn't start till April, did we? Okay, so it's like, well, are we going to release Valentine's medals in, what, June? It doesn't really make sense. So I think a few of these medals don't really have any malicious intentions behind them. It's just like, well, it wouldn't really make sense to release a Valentine's medal in June, so, or any time apart from February. And then by the time the next February rolls around, the next Valentine's Day, it's like, well, they're kind of weak now. Even though I think for like a collector's sake, someone like me who has no practical use for them, we still like to have them in my collection regardless. But anyway, let's move on to the next part. Okay, so we have the Lovable Stitch medal up here. So this one is known as Experiment 626. Straight off for the effect, basically it has exactly the same effect as the Stitch that we all know and love, the Tier 1 Farmal version of Stitch. It has the same effect in that the multiplier gets stronger the more special attacks are used in succession beforehand. But obviously with it being a Tier 3 multiplier, it can go up to 100%, and it's just a natively higher multiplier anyway, being a Tier 3 medal. Pretty decent medal, again, the really low gauge cost and the fact that if you put it towards the end of a Keyblade, you're stacking up lots of special attacks in a row. Wouldn't have been too bad at all. This one I could definitely have seen being released in our version. I believe it was for the like on-screen debut of Stitch, so the timing probably wouldn't have worked out too well, but I mean they could have come up with something else, you know? And again, it's like, well, if you missed it when it was initially released in English, then it would have been kind of weird to just sort of release it off time in... Sorry, so the timing lined up well for the Japanese version because they released it during his... Oh, I'm going to be laughed at here for getting it wrong, but I want to say 10th anniversary screen debut, but that's probably wrong. It was definitely some anniversary of it debuting on the screen. So again, if they got it, the timeline wrong, a little bit wrong for like the English version, I mean, so be it. We would have still been happy to get the medal. Flash over there, that's a bit of an interesting case because I don't believe I was playing when the original Zootopia event came out. I don't believe the game was out in the Australian version. I know I have like 2 or 3 copies of the Judy and Nick medal, but I don't have any of the ones that were separate. I believe they came out as avatar boards though, but I could be wrong. So, and I'm definitely going to need people who played both versions to step in here. Was he released as an avatar board in the Japanese version? Because I know there was some sort of event board, but I'm not sure if it was like a paid avatar board or not. If that was the case, maybe they thought it's a bit much to try and charge him for 3 avatar boards in our version of the game, given that, you know, maybe we had a few less jewels running around. Who knows? Basically, his effect was that he lowered all targets' general attack by 1 stage, which is not too bad back in the day. I don't think the cost was all that high. And at the time, when enemies weren't all that strong, but neither were we, that probably would have been a pretty decent effect. I remember using like the Judy and Nick medal a decent bit because it gave an offensive buff and a defensive buff simultaneously, so, you know, more tools of being able to survive would certainly have been welcome back in the day. But anyway, who knows why this one wasn't released. If you have any input at all, please tell me in the comments and I'll definitely be interested to read it. Let's move on to the next bit. Okay, we have some of the most controversial medals in the game right now. Basically, we have some of the very, very first, if not the first, copycat medals. So these ones work by copying the medal before them, whereas you're like HD Vanitas, HD Naminé, HD Shion, copy the ones after them. These ones were very game-changing at the time because they literally introduced the concept of a copycat medal. They came back into relevance very, very recently, again at the time of this recording, because we recently had the Phil Cup in the English version of the game, and a few weeks before that in the Japanese version, where there was a restriction where you could only use Tier 3 or Tier 4 medals. Well, guess what? You have a Tier 3, for those 2 up there, the Lock, Shock and Barrel 5-star and 6-star medals, and a Tier 4 being the, I believe it's called Boogie medal. Let's turn this down just a little bit. yeah, so basically for the Field Cup event, you could just take one of those guys and copy your brand new Kyrie EX or Shion EX and make a mockery of the entire event. But we had to try a little bit differently in the Field Cup for our version, didn't we, guys? Anyway, I believe there are like massive licensing issues to deal with the usage of the Nightmare Before Christmas works in the global version of the game. I know the Japanese version seems to get around that, and I will not even pretend to understand the legalities behind it. But my simple understanding is that Square Enix North America is not allowed to profit directly from those images, which obviously rules out, you know, having a high score challenge featuring those guys as rewards, which would encourage people to pay to try and get ahead in that contest, and therefore be paying because of the likeness of those medals. So, I mean, if they thought about that a little bit more, maybe they wouldn't have used these particular characters as copycat medals, because you know damn well people would have pulled extremely hard to get a hold of copycat medals back in the day. The one over there, okay, so if you guys have ever wondered why Halloween Sora C appears in your inventory, and Halloween Sora A appears in your inventory, but there never was a Halloween Sora B, that's it over there. It's a random attack medal that does a couple of hits. It's not super amazing, it doesn't deal any buffs or anything, but it's got a pretty decent multiplier. Again, a lot of random target medals do have a pretty decent multiplier. I've talked about that before, but yeah, I think the artwork's pretty cool, and I certainly would have liked to have had this. I mean, I do quite like random target medals quite a lot, because it helps me out of certain gems. Oh, hang on, let's repeat that music. Okay, and the other big thing to note was that it's a farmable medal. Sorry, it was a farmable medal. I don't know, for whatever reason, and it was before the introduction of Union Cross, basically we lost like all of our farmable event medals, and I still think Maleficent B was the last one. But Stitch that I talked about before was a farmable event medal, and I will be talking about a couple more now, but it's like, this is where people start to say, well, maybe they were intentionally trying to make the North American version weaker to potentially get some more money out of us, and then I kind of have to go, well, yeah, you may be right there, because, you know, what other reason is there for withholding a decently powerful free medal that you could potentially, you know, guilt a tier 3 at the time would have been game changing. Like literally the second we got a guiltable tier 3 medal in our version, so many people just had such a better time with the game, and it was the Jack Skellington medal, which was previously I don't think it was a paid medal, but it was certainly not a free medal in the Japanese version. Yeah, in any case, let's move on to the next one. Okay, and speaking of farmable event medals, here we have nightmare versions of the Meowdesty and the Meow Wow. So this one pissed a lot of people off, and I believe rightly so. It's like, here we have some free, farmable, guiltable, tier 3 event medals, and it's like, we just couldn't get a hold of them. Especially like reverse magic. It took a long time for us to get any sort of reverse magics in the game at all. It took me a long time to guilt my first reverse magic. So we have, they're not overly powerful, but again, with a tier 3 multiplier, it certainly would have helped a lot of people out. So we have a all hitting targets medal and a single hitting targets medal. So very reminiscent of like the Flabber Meow and I'm gonna forget its name, but obviously the other Dream Eater. There is one more Dream Eater coming up a little bit later. But yeah, kind of cool medals here, and I don't know why they wouldn't have given us these. Again, it's like the Kingdom Hearts 3D event for us was basically just like, here, have an Aqua medal. But we didn't really get too much else, but a bit of a shame, but again, we soldier on. Alrighty, so here we have another victim of, I believe, sort of the wrong time to release Christmas medals kind of deal. So, well, saying that during Christmas they just released a VIP medal of freaking Halloween Sora, but anyway. Okay, so we have Santa Claus at the top and top middle. Santa Claus, Jack Skellington Santa Claus version or something on the top right there. A VIP Christmas Sora here, which you would have recently seen the artwork for in our like upright speed boosters, and then Christmas Town Donald, I believe it's called, which again you would have seen the artwork for a magic booster we had during December in our version of the game. Okay, so a few things to go over here. So the Christmas Town Donald was a farmable medal, and again I've just mentioned why possibly they weren't giving us free farmable medals. But I believe this one up that way now. I'll put myself here. Okay, this was a random target medal, so I can just cover that up. Great. Okay, so we have Santa Claus at the top there. So that gave you a PSM defensive debuff and hit a single target. nothing too special, and I believe it was a high score challenge reward. So I believe this was back in the day when they were doing like double medals in the high score challenge. So you'd have the really good one up there, which that's a tier 5, the Jack Skellington one, and then you'd have the sort of the tier 3 one as well. Not quite a consolation prize, but it was like for the people that couldn't quite guilt that one, they could probably guilt that one as well. And the people that couldn't get any of those at all would hopefully be able to get at least one of those. So yeah, nothing particularly special about it, but come on, man, it's Santa, come on. Why wouldn't we want that medal in our version? And Santa Claus Jack over there, at the time, pretty decent. A single target tier 5 medal, not bad at all. Raises your own strength by 3 tiers for 1 turn. Reminds me of what our HD Beast ended up turning into. And that's a whole other topic of medals that got altered from our version into the Japanese version. Hey, no one steal that, that's my idea. Santa Sora over there is not a bad medal at all. Restores 7 gauges and does 1 single target tier 5 hit as well. That's quite powerful. Not as powerful as Jackie Boy over there, but a pretty cool looking VIP medal nonetheless. I believe taken from official Kingdom Hearts artwork. Again, I don't want to think anything malicious here. I want to think that potentially wrong time to release the medals kind of deal. Like, because again, the time we would have got them would have been like February-ish or potentially March-ish of 2017. And then it's like, well, doesn't really fit anymore, does it? Again, saying that, they seem to be releasing Halloween Town medals as VIP medals all the time, and then they are forced to release them in like, December over here, so doesn't really make any sense, but whatever, there's no continuity, but that's my theory. Again, if you have any thoughts yourself, comments, you know what to do. Next! Alrighty, so I really love this music. So next we have the Devil's Wave and the Devil's Tower. So these medals are taken basically inspired directly from the enemies of the Kingdom Hearts 0.2 game. Basically what they are is they are essentially reverse speed equivalents of like Master Xehanort or Master Ericus over there. So remember how I just talked about before, how there was the high score challenges back in the day, where you'd have sort of the main reward and then like the sub reward. These guys were the sub reward of a high score challenge in the Japanese version that featured, again, these as the sub reward, and Kingdom Hearts 0.2 Terra and Ventus as the main reward. You know the medal where like Ven's looking like and Ven's kind of unconscious and Terra's looking like off to the distance, and they're all sort of like goldeny glowy because Aqua's like whatever. You've all played 0.2, I hope. So for whatever reason, when the 0.2 Terra and Ventus came in our version, it was one of those deals where it's like, hey, if you guild this medal and this medal and this medal, then you'll get, for every one of those that you guild, you'll get like a 2 dotted copy of 0.2 Terra and Ventus. So this one you can kind of be like, well, was it like a money making move? Was it like, we figure we can get more money out of people if they chase doing pulls over and over and over again to try and guilt certain medals, versus, maybe less people will spend money trying to compete for them? Who knows? I mean, this one you can probably make a case for money chasing here being the primary objective. It's kind of a shame because I kind of dig this music, and this medal always reminds me of this music whenever I hear it, so yeah, I'd still like to see this medal return in some way, shape or form. I'd really hope it would, but who knows, you never know. Next. Alright, we're going to keep this one going because I really like the music. So, we have the Sora and Riku Kingdom Hearts 3D version medals. So basically these ones were released to commemorate the release of Kingdom Hearts 2.8 in Japan. So, it was like a raid boss, I believe, or was it farmable? I forget. It was either a farmable or a raid boss, whatever. It wasn't hard to get, either way. That one on the side there was definitely a raid boss though. So that was the Neko Cat medal released about a month later. Nothing particularly special about these guys, but again, it's like, it's sort of skipping content for the sake of skipping content. That one kind of shits me a bit because I believe what they gave us instead for the global release of Kingdom Hearts 2.8 was a chance to get HD Aqua again, which I'm not complaining about because it was like, finally, I've had this medal in my inventory for like a year. I can finally guilt HD Aqua. Yeah, HD Aqua. But I believe instead of that, because the Japanese version just got a brand new event for a brand new medal, and it's like, but it would have been nice either way. And then the Neko Cat came out, like I said, about a month later, and it was a farmable raid event. Basically, you had to boost that month's raid medal up to like level 95 or something, and then it would start dropping these medals. So a bit of work put in to get it, definitely, but again, you know, a decently powerful single target medal that you could finally guild to 100%. Certainly would have been nice, but not a big loss in the grand scheme of things, but it's like, still, would have been nice. Alright, next. Oh boy, they skipped a ton of medals now. Okay, so in the rest of the world, not Japan, they released the Beauty and the Beast live action movie, right? Beautiful, beautiful. Emma Watson and some CG monster. And to commemorate that, they gave us the HD Beast medal. They actually gave it to us in our version before the Japanese version. So obviously the Japanese version can never be behind the English version, or the global version. They go ahead and release the live action version in Japan a couple months later, and instead of just one medal, they put out an entire set. So we have Lumiere B, the Wardrobe, Mrs. Potts and Chip, Cogsworth B, Belle B, and another version of HD Beast, which again this will go into my altered medals category, which was a buffed up version of our version of the medal. Okay, so what do these guys do? We have literally none of these. These ones are constantly in the pool system for the Japanese version, and it's like, again, a case of like, shit, well, it would be weird to release them now. Even though I don't think it would be. I think we'd all get over it if they just released it whenever they felt like it. We'd be like, okay, cool, whatever. Anyway, so the Wardrobe, Lumiere, and Cogsworth are basically power, speed, and magic versions of the same medal. They up your attack by 3 stages, as well as the respective attribute by 3 stages, so power, speed, and magic. That's not bad. That's really not bad at all. The only drawback is they do it for only 3 attacks, and their gauge cost is very, very high. I believe it's a 4 gauge cost medal, which, well, I say it's pretty high, but it's honestly not too bad. I think this would have been very, very appreciated in our version. It definitely would have given like free-to-play players some more utility, and in things like the Field Cup, I think this would have come in extremely, extremely handy. So, of all the ones to have come out that we've missed, I think these ones probably hurt the most. For the rest of the medals, so we have Mrs. Potts and Chip over there. So that one gives you just 3 stages of attack, and it lasts the entire turn, and it also gives you back 3 gauges. The only problem is that it costs 5, so it's a net total of only 2 gauges cost, but again, you can't use it if you have less than 5. I suppose though, if you were to put like some sort of SP lowering skill on it, then it effectively becomes a gauge restoring medal, which is not bad at all. We have Belby over there, which does a whopping -3 tiers of general defense down, but only if it's 2 attacks. It's almost like the reverse of, let's say, a Ansem the Wise or an, no, not Olette's. You know what I'm thinking of. A Selfie? I think I was thinking of a Selfie. Uniform. Yes, Uniform Selfie. Exactly what I'm thinking of. Where they raise your general attack by 3 stages for 1 turn. I think this would have been a really, really, really useful medal. Very useful medal indeed. 3 stages of general defense is no joke. That's a really, really serious debuff. Yeah, it only lasts for 2 attacks, but whatever. If you get, okay, let's say you put that on like slot 4, you get all your buffs in before that, put that in slot 4, and then hit the enemy with a nuke in slot 5. I think this would have been a pretty decent medal, especially for our version of the game. So, you know, a little bit miffed we didn't get that, but I can kind of see it from their point of view. It's like, oh, there's no good time to release this medal, but at the same time, come on guys, you've done sillier things than that before. Anyway, these medals all culminated in the release of the... Yeah, I did get it right. A high score challenge featuring the Sora and Beast medal, which you see up there. So this was the high score challenge award. Very, very powerful single hit. Up to speed attack by 3 stages for 1 turn, as well as lowering the enemy's general defense by 1 stage. Not a bad medal at all. I think a lot of people were pretty happy about it. I mean, it looks pretty sweet, right? It looks pretty freaking sick. It's directly taken out of Kingdom Hearts 2 during the limit attack. I think it's literally just either posing the models as they appear in the limit, or maybe taking a screenshot. I don't know. I don't know anything about this kind of stuff. Again, I can see their predicament though. It's like, well, we can't release this if we don't release these, and we've already released HD Beast, and we can't. What are we going to do? Buff that? And yeah, I can sort of see their predicament, but at the same time, I think we'd all get over it if they just released the rest of the medals. Especially because they went ahead and bloody updated the Okay, so when HD Beast came out in the Japanese version, it didn't even have the same artwork. It had like really cool glowing artwork, which they then released in our version. Like only recently, they just updated our version of the game, and without telling anyone, the artwork changed the Japanese version. So I think it's time. I think it's time you release these medals, guys. Come on, what are you doing? May as well continue on this page here. We have this really cool illustrated Moogle. So it doesn't actually do anything. It's exactly like little Sora and Moogle that we have right now, except this is like a Japanese exclusive event. So they tricked me pretty good because during my missing medals event, I was going to put during my medals of the future, I was not going to put that one in over there because I thought it wasn't going to come out. I thought it was going to be skipped, and I was like, okay, I'll put them both in this video right here. This video ended up taking a lot longer to come out than I thought it would, and then they ended up doing that event anyway, so I was like, you got me, guys, you got me pretty good. Anyway, I still really want to hope we get this medal in our version of the game. Even if it's only like a 10-day event and you're only guaranteed to get one. I mean, look at it. It's awesome. It looks so freaking cool. I would have really loved to have this in our version of the game. Yeah, so fingers crossed. But I mean, if we miss it, so be it. There could be another one of these events somewhere down the line. We'll get some more Moogle artwork and, you know, who knows. And finally, for the very last medal of this video, we have the mascot of our current, the current logo of our game features this medal. So if you're wondering where that artwork comes from, well, it's from Birth by Sleep Final Mix, I believe. But it's friggin' illustrated King Mickey, and nowhere to be seen in our version of the game, despite being the artwork for our version of the game. So, okay, whatever. It was the very first medal, I believe, to lower only a single target's general defense down by 3 tiers for 1 turn. So this was like, you can sort of see the progression. It was like, okay, initially you have a single target medal that lowers the general defense by 1 tier for 1 turn, and then you have medals that lower all targets' general defense by 1 tier for 1 turn, and then so on and so forth. You go up, 1 target by 2 tiers, all targets by 2 tiers, 1 target by 3 tiers, and then eventually all targets by, I believe, Final Form Shion came next, which was like 2 tiers again, but for 2 turns. Anyway, I believe this is, I at the time thought this was going to be like, okay, definitely in our version, and then we'll have a medal that does 3 tiers of general defense, but then they went and up the buff cap, and power just went crazy. Freaking illustrated Kari EX coming out of nowhere, doing all sorts of buffs. So, anyway, they have to put this medal in our version of the game at some point, alright? Surely. I thought, like, the debut deal would have been a really good time for it, or, I mean, the debut deal part 2. I believe this medal has to come at some point. I'm sure it will, but who knows? Who knows, guys? Let me just make sure there are no more medals. I'm pretty sure this is it. One sec. Okay, I'm pretty sure I got them all. So this video took a lot of effort to make, and I want to give a shout out to the guys in my party who helped me out on my Discord, the guys and girls. I was thinking of putting this video together for quite a while, and they helped me kind of complete the list. Well, you guys can see that list if you want. It's basically a little spreadsheet I was making for myself. But yeah, so big shout outs to them. If you can think of any that I missed, definitely let me know. And again, it's not about bitching. It's not about going, wow, we don't have this. It's about just thinking like, you know, what are the circumstances to lead this being skipped? Do we think they're ever going to return? Hopefully they will. If any do return, what would you like to see? I do think these guys are contenders because it's like, that's a lot of medals you could put into the game. The only downside is like, we're up to tier 7 right now, potentially getting into tier 8 pretty soon. It would be kind of weird to release tier 3s at this point. Again, it's like, you can kind of make excuses for them all the time, but yeah, I don't know. So yeah, definitely let me know if any would come back. Let me know what you'd like to see. I'm definitely holding out hope for these guys. I mean, even though they're not particularly strong or anything, it's like, they're pretty sick. Where were these, for example? Like, they just didn't release these at all over Christmas, which could have been like the perfect time. But again, you have your rights issues potentially with like Jack Skellington and Bloody Santa. There doesn't seem to be a Santa version of Goofy at all. A lot of people were thinking like, okay, 2017 they'll have a Santa version of Goofy, and no, just didn't have one. So anyway, I've definitely started to ramble now. Sorry guys, it's like 5 AM. I've been up working on this video for a long time, so I'll leave you with it. Brep. I'll see you guys later, okay? All the best. Bye.